Okay, Dave Olson has resorted to caps, so I'm going to pay attention to that. He did a second one, looks like to me, and the caps are for sixth time asking. Since we could all use a break from politics, let's talk some Star Trek. How do you rank the original 6 movies? The usual rap is that the odd-numbered movies suck, but that's not fair because 3 is better than people remember. And and the director's cut DVD of 1, when you can zip past all the interminable special effects shots. Oh, look, another cloud formation on the view screen is actually pretty good. So my ranking is 2, then 6, 3, 1, and 4, clumped very close together, and way at the end 5. What say you? If I've answered this already and missed it, his profuse apologies. If I did, I don't remember answering it. Well, just first to answer your question, just walking through it, clearly Wrath of Khan is the best of the original series movies. I think probably, this is my personal list, I think I like 3 better, Search for Spock, than The Voyage Home. I didn't particularly like The Voyage Home. And the reason I didn't like The Voyage Home was because it reminds me of all the times I was disappointed watching either Star Trek or The Wonderful World of Disney, or, anytime I was watching something that was supposed to be set in the future and it was set in the past, I didn't know why they did it, but they did it. Now I realize they did it to save budget. But whenever, like on City on the Edge of Forever, which is in fact a great script, probably the best episode, and I grew to appreciate that a lot more as I got older. But you see a Star Trek episode especially when you're young, and everybody's in the 1930s or whatever, and it's like not what I had in mind. So visiting San Francisco in the late 70s, early 80s, or whatever it was, I just didn't like it much. I just didn't. So I guess I liked Khan first, 3 second, Search for Spock. I think I probably liked the final one, number 6, third. I liked the original one, 4th. What am I missing? I like 4, Voyage Home, 5th, and then everybody hates The Final Frontier. Everybody hates it because it's just unbearable. The reason I mean, it's a pretty inside baseball question, and it's just answered. So rather than giving you a 26-minute show today, I'll just elaborate on something I think is somewhat interesting, and that is, I'll put it up tomorrow or the next day. I finally got a chance to do interview. I interviewed Dave Rubin on After Hours for members only, but yesterday I went over to Dave's studio and he interviewed me for about an hour and a half, almost an hour 20, hour 15, something like that. The first half of that interview's up. Dave Rubin is a really fair guy, real decent guy. I just really, really loved the interview. If you're a Stratosphere Lounger, you probably heard all of this before and almost in the same words. But there were things that I hadn't really touched on before. And I just thought it was a superb conversation. I was very happy with it. I thought I liked the look of everything. It was great. So hopefully I'd like to get better cameras in here, and I suspect that'll be the case moving forward with the NRA shows. But Dave is a big Star Wars guy, and I sat there thinking, if I had been born later, 10, 15 years later, would I have been a Star Wars guy or would I have stayed a Star Trek guy? And I kind of think I still think I would stay a Star Trek guy because there's only one Star Trek, so needless to say, we're talking about the original series. And by the way, this new thing looks just absolutely appalling. It looks just so terrible. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just looks like here comes your lesson for the day. We've got an elderly, we've got a middle-aged Asian woman, but we also have a young black woman. These are our heroes for the thing, and I have no doubt that in the future these people will exist, but I also have no doubt that so much of this is just simply showing us, how we should feel about things. I don't know. I suspect, just from looking at it, I think it's going to crater. But I may be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, and I've certainly been wrong in the past. Although God knows I can't remember when. But I suspect that Discovery is just going to be. It just looks to me like, here's your lesson for the day in, political correctness. Maybe I'll be wrong. I doubt it. It to me is the same kind of thing with Ghostbusters, when they redid the Ghostbusters with women, and they're saying, basically, I mean, they were saying it in the movie, and they were essentially, the producers were saying out loud as well, women can be scientists and adventurers and stuff too, and that's true, but it's not where the numbers are, I mean, and Ghostbusters was a boys' movie. It was not just for boys or for males to watch, but the antics are very male, and as we found out, those kind of relationships just don't seem to work out quite as well. These adventurous kind of things with women, they start trying to turn adventure movies into Sex and the City for humor, and I just think it falls right in the middle and just plain dies. But this new Star Trek strikes me the same way. So when I say Star Trek, I mean the original one. The thing that was most impressive to me about it was I just loved the sense of newness. I don't mean newness in terms of like the effects on the show or newness and it was just science fiction on TV. I like the fact that internal to their own universe, everything was new. No one had been there before. No man has gone before. I just don't see. I haven't seen that in anything since then, at all. And to me, that was the whole show. You'd see the cold open prior to the credits, and you'd be someplace, and you had a 2-minute hook or something like that. And there's either some new monster, or there's some new civilization, there's some new spaceship, there's some new aliens. There's so many. There's something new, and you don't know what it is. And they put the hook in you, and then they go ding dong, ding, ding. You get that little opening theme, and it's like, wow, what are we going to do today? The idea that the whole purpose for me of Star Trek was that even growing up, the world has been mapped and discovered. There's no place on the earth that we don't know about. I'm sure you could get lost in the Amazon if you tried hard enough, but certainly if you weren't trying to get lost, you had an ELT locator, emergency locator transmitter or something, or needless to say, a satellite phone or anything else like that. You could be found at pretty much any time. And whether you want to get lost or not, the fact is there are no new things here to discover with our own eyes. People say the bottom of the ocean, okay, but mud is mud and visibility is a foot. So that was what I loved about it. I loved that I didn't know what was going to happen, and I didn't know what was out there, and they didn't either. So I guess it's the exploration aspect of Star Trek that meant the most to me. With that said, then you realize that Star Wars has zero of that, none. There's no exploration. There's no what's the word I'm looking for? Discovery. Everything's been there. Nobody's going to a place that hasn't been before. Now, Star Wars has a lot of action, and I think, I don't know. I mean, it's visually exciting and fine, and I'll grant them all of that, and the whole fighter pilot thing is great and all that, but to me, it's just missing something. So if Star Trek was about exploration and discovery and going where no man had gone before, and seeking out new life and new civilizations, just simply doing things that no one had ever done before, that was what was in it for me. What then is the driver of Star Wars? What drives Star Wars? What kind of movies are Star Wars? If you take away the action and the gee whiz and all that stuff out of it, Star Trek's about exploration and humanity and how humans deal with stress and how we deal with very different civilizations from our own, and it's about confidence in ourselves, and also about all the good things that we can do. So if that's basically it for Star Trek, what is it about Star Wars? What is it? And I just sitting here thinking about it, never really occurred to me before. It occurs to me now that Star Wars essentially is a series of religious movies. When you take the action out of Star Trek, when you take the phasers out, you're left with a mystery show and an exploration show and a discovery show. If you take all the blasters and the TIE fighters and the lightsabers out of Star Wars, you're left with a religious movie. It's really it. That's why so many people, numbers are down now, I would say, but for a while there, and I'm sure, still I don't know what the numbers are, but for a while there were more people declaring themselves as Jedi on their religion in Great Britain, I think, than Christianity. And people, there are people who put down Jedi as their religion, significant numbers of people. And all of the plot arc of Star Wars is about religious. It's about mastering a lost religion. It's mystical. That's the word I'm looking for. It's mystical, and so in a way, really, the whole ethos of Star Wars is, Luke, trust your feelings. Feel. Don't think. Don't use the targeting computer. Trust your feelings. Trust your feelings. And I just don't think that's necessarily a good idea. I just don't think it's a good idea, as a general rule. Now, of course, the thing about Star Trek was, you had the balance. I'm not going to get into that whole thing. I've done it 100 times. But, Kirk is the will, Spock is the intellect, and McCoy's the emotion. And when I was watching Star Trek as a kid, I thought Spock was awesome, and I thought McCoy was just a nuisance. Watching it as an adult, I realized just the exact opposite way around. McCoy is he's, to me, he's everything. And not to get too heavy with this, I guess, but McCoy, in the original series, McCoy's the guy who's fighting for Charlie Gard, right? McCoy's the humanity. Spock is the guy who's basically saying that the risk and reward benefit doesn't add up, and there's no need to be emotional about this. Logic says that this kid's gonna die because we don't want him embarrassing us. He was basically sentenced to death because they didn't want him embarrassing the national health system. But McCoy really was in many ways the conscience of it, and he just simply said, damn it, Jim, we're not animals. So when you take if you take Star Wars as a religious film, a series of religious films, what really is the religion? And I'm going to exclude the midichlorians thing because, needless to say, because of Spock's brain. But what is the message of Star Wars? It's feel, don't think. It's a sense of there's a sense of elitism and aristocracy that runs through Star Wars in a way that's different than things like Arthur or Return of the King or something like that. Yeah, that's actually kind of an interesting point now that I think about it. I made the case before that the story of the journey of the hero, the story of the wandering hero, basically is you have a farmhand or a guy who's working on water reclamation, or he's a squire, or he's a country boy raised out in Iowa or whatever. And so you start out with a person who doesn't know his own identity, and that's Aragorn, and it's Clark Kent, and it's Arthur, and it's Luke Skywalker. And we find out later that they have in fact been, not only don't they know their own story, but they've been hidden away. And they meet an elderly mage. You know, there's a wise man. All of them meet a wise man. Whether it's Clark Kent's dad or whether it's Obi-Wan Kenobi or Gandalf. And they also meet rogues, and they go on this journey, and they save the girl, and and the universe and all the rest of it. But only in Star Wars, I think, only Star Wars has the exclusionary quality of it. In other words, you're either strong with the Force or you're not. Aragorn was I want to say the 37th descendant of Isildur, who cut the ring off of Sauron and then caused the whole chain of events to follow because of his failure, his moral failure after he did that by keeping the ring. But there was nothing about Aragorn that was magic, and there was nothing about Aragorn that was inaccessible in terms of, you're just locked out of doing that. Arthur was, blessed by God, obviously. He pulled the sword out of the stone, but he didn't have magical powers. And Superman has so many magical powers that there's no hope of attaining it. But I think on some level, most of these people who are Star Wars fans, they all get dressed up as Jedi and they do their lightsaber thing, which is so embarrassing and just humiliating for grown adults to do that when, walking around in their Jedi suits with their lightsabers when really what they should be doing is, something dignified like walking around in blue velour jerseys with pointy ear tips on. But when you get right down to it, Star Wars is extremely aristocratic and it's exclusionary. The Force is strong with you or it's not. Bone Canoe just said Han Solo didn't have any powers. No, he didn't have any powers, and look what happened to him. What happened to Han Solo? Han Solo was a dashing young guy, and then when we meet him again, he's essentially a homeless guy, right? I mean, he's a homeless beggar. He's still got his friend with him, but Han Solo, when we meet him in The Force Awakens, is essentially a homeless guy. He's essentially dirt poor, unknown, on the run, still doing the same things he did when he was, 28. It's not a success story, Han Solo. The only other thing that strikes me the same way, and I never ever, I can tell you in confidence that I've never seen an entire Harry Potter movie all the way through. But Harry Potter has that same quality. You're either a wizard or you're a muggle, right? You're a mudblood. You've either got this magic power or you don't. And I don't know. There's something about that locks me out of that story, and therefore locks. I don't know. It's just tough to connect to. Magical characters like that who have these magical powers. The whole thing about Superman is that he's not part of the human struggle. He's been raised so well and he's so morally pure that he doesn't have these. He's not ever without his powers. So you get the idea. But Star Wars, the substrate of Star Wars to me, I just don't like as much. It just doesn't appeal to me as much. The thing about exploration was you could feel like you could, if you worked your tail off, if you really worked hard, I always got the sense that you could be a member of Starfleet. And if you really studied hard and, stayed in shape and stuff, you probably could get assignment on a ship. Maybe not the Enterprise, but something. If you really worked, you could be part of Starfleet. But no one thinks that you can be a part of the Jedi by hard work, or it's just you're born with it or you're not. And I find that a little aristocratic and a little bit, I don't know. Anyway, that's pretty much it for a question we've taken a few times. So I got a bunch of 5, so I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go till 7. How's that? Because I'm going to go actually light up the grill. Imagine that.